Hi and welcome everyone. We're here on Facebook and YouTube today with StreamYard, Listen Real Family Talk. I'm Karan and this is Karina. I'm
I'm
here
Carrie.
I'm Cassandra.
and we are here today to discuss for a second round boundaries. How are you ladies doing tonight?
It's been a day. I'm doing good though.
It is always a day for me. We just thank God we just have another day. It's almost over though. See, we to the end of this day. So if you didn't get all done, if you didn't get everything done you needed to today, just keep on trusting God, and maybe we'll get it finished tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, he only gives us a number of few hours that we can handle, and we only have a few hours that we can handle.
right.
But the last time we talked, we said we were going to start out this conversation with boundaries. But our last conversation was about what?
Was it about self-reflection?
Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Yeah, and that leads up to this boundary thing. I found it quite interesting that the Bible says that boundaries are self-control. And where do we get that word self-control from? That's from when we were talking about the very last fruit of the spirits.
That was our last fruit of the spirit, literally.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And boundaries, the Bible says, is self-control. Mm. When people think about boundaries, they think about countries, and we think about the United States, and we have a boundary with Canada, we have a boundary with Mexico, and then each one of the states has its own boundaries. Indiana has Ohio on one side and Illinois on the other, and Kentucky beneath us. And we have a lot of water and Michigan above us, but it's more of Michigan's water than it is Michigan, the state.
Mhm.
And so, what do boundaries do? Because Kate Sandy, you wanted to talk about this. What do boundaries do?
Boundaries are more for us than for the other person. It protects us. For me, it keeps me. So if anything comes and disrupts my peace and disrupt my if it disrupts my peace, then it's too much. I have to reset the boundary line. So it's more for me than for the other person.
Yeah, that's what boundaries do for a country. That's what they do for a state. They keep the things they want within that state kind of under some kind of state control.
Hmm.
And yeah, they do in that country. They keep the things for that country in that country's control. So it's the same concept, you guys, when you think about boundaries for yourself. In case Sandy was talking about for herself. What do you think, Karan?
I think when you talk about boundaries for states or countries or continents or people, I think,
You're muted.
Her daughter did that.
oh man. Well, did y'all hear me at first or did she mute?
We heard you start out and say, I think they are. Then your daughter muted you.
So I think boundaries for states, for countries, for continents, for people. I think the huge thing to think about is you have to create laws, you have to create your reasoning for your boundaries. They protect you, they protect the people, they actually protect you and whoever
Mhm.
outside of you. Some people may not look at it that way because they may be offended if you're just talking about people boundaries. But when you're talking about states and continents and countries, you got to figure the laws, the systems, the guidelines, the rules on how and why and when and where. And how much. And I mean, there's just all these questions to answer. So if states and countries and continents can have them, surely people can create boundaries. For
Well, you
this.
know, you hit on a lot of stuff that we can touch on tonight. Before we do that, I just want to make a point. You are correct that even in dealing with God, we have these rules and we have these regulations and we have laws that are boundaries that we should stay within. Because again, self-control is me learning to control myself in every situation, me controlling me. I think we talked about a number of times on our show here that we go all the way back to the Garden of Eden. And I tell you this right from the beginning, God had a plan, and who messed it up? Adam and Eve messed it up. We know that. Everybody knows that. They messed it up. And how did they mess it up? Because they decided, each one of them, Adam and Eve, decided that they were going to do things their way. And when they did that, they went outside the boundaries that God had for them. What was that boundary that he set for them? Everybody knows it. Everybody knows that simple boundary. It was very simple. He said, you can touch everything, you can do everything, you can whatever, everything. Just this one little thing you can't do.
Eat from the garden of knowledge, the tree of knowledge.
Correct. And with that choice, and he allowed them to have that choice because he told them. And God does the same thing for us. And he does it over and over and over for us.
Mm-hmm.
But what we never do is we never stop to say, am I inside the boundaries or am I outside the boundaries? Maybe this is why this is happening to me. Maybe this is why I'm helping destroy somebody else's life. Because you're right, Corinne. Boundaries are not just for me. They're for me because I might hurt somebody else. Let's think about this. Yesterday in this country, we had a lady this time, you guys, go into a school armed with an AKA, 2 of them, and a gun, and shoot 6 people. We can't even start to talk about all the boundaries she broke. The first one is, thou shalt not kill. Even if you get that mad, you guys, we have to really talk about this. These are great examples of boundaries. These may not be the ones that are affecting your life.
Yeah.
And then we have the federal government who will not say, we're not going to have those kinds of guns in the hands of just regular people. If we're going to have those guns, let's leave them with the army. It's that simple. Even the army shouldn't have them because they don't just kill, they kill lots and lots of people at one time. Yeah. Those are boundaries. So let's get into this. So it talks about Adam and Eve. Let's go back to them. They had a relationship, right? And they were building their relationship with God, and Satan came in, he kind of deceived Eve, and then Eve deceived Adam, and all of them blamed each other. That's what happens. That's what happens when boundaries get broken. Everybody starts blaming everybody else for whatever's going on.
Yeah.
But relationships are where boundaries have to be made and where they make each person physically understand who they are. Where do you know, either one of you can answer this, where do you know that in a dating relationship, the first breakdown of boundaries could possibly occur?
Communication and
accountability. Why do you say that?
Sometimes things can be fixed with a conversation and understanding each other's point of view.
I think that's a part of what you said is the understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can be communicating all you want to. I can go to Mexico and start speaking English and be like, I communicated everything I needed to, this Mexican.
Yeah.
But if they don't speak English, there is no understanding,
right,
that they will have for anything that I've tried to communicate. So I think the first breakdown of any relationship, in all relationship, is the lack of understanding that people have when you try to communicate.
Yeah.
So when you talk, both of you talk about a lack of understanding. There are two words that when I was looking and studying on this today, and this other one just came to me right now, and the Holy Spirit just does that. But the one of them is manipulation. Let's think about that. And the second one is my motive. Manipulation and motive. So we're in a relationship, right? And we can keep going back and using Adam and Eve because theirs is very clear. Lots of people have read it. Everybody knows the story. What's the manipulation in that situation? What was the manipulation?
So we have to add the third thing in that relationship.
That's correct. That's correct.
Which was the snake.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the third part of the relationship. But if Adam and Eve's relationship was as strong, I don't know if as strong, if they were more self-aware to communicate with each other, to say, hey, what does God want us to do? What should we be doing as a couple other than look at what this snake told me to eat, and this is what he said that God doesn't want us to know. The snake manipulates Eve, who then takes that information and further manipulates her mate.
Mm-hmm.
And then who had the motive? Who was the motive though? There was a motive in this too. The motive was to divide those two people from God. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the division first came by dividing them.
Mm-hmm.
It divided them first.
Mm-hmm. What were you gonna say, Kay Sandy?
I was gonna say there's a second part to that is accountability as well.
No, that's the third piece. Oh yeah, we ain't got to that responsibility that each one of us have for our own piece in this. You're right. But before we get to the accountability, you got to know the motive, people, and you have to check your own heart.
Uh-huh.
So I talked about from the beginning of this whole show, check your heart.
Right. Yeah.
And so when we check our hearts, why am I doing this? I have another example, but go ahead with that accountability. Go ahead.
Well, let's stick with the motive and the manipulation. So there's always an underlying piece of what it's always. If you want to keep it with Adam and Eve, because I can use personal experience, because I know with personal experience it's always what somebody sees somebody else is doing. So that's always their motive. So it's always about. So with the serpent, it was, did God really tell you to do this? His motive was to get them away from God. And so if you take our daily lives, it's always the motive for somebody else is always to tear us away from somebody else. And that's really what the serpent was doing with Adam and Eve. They was trying to tear them away from God. And that's what his motive was. And he did that by manipulating them into eating the fruit off the tree.
Right.
And so I bring those 2 points up because you're right. We're going to go into some examples, some real examples of life. But, the Bible gives us clear examples if we want to stop and figure out, do I want to be like this? Because you have to check yourself and say, is this what I want to do? Is this what I'm doing to people? Is this how I come across in a relationship that I'm really not trying to build? Because I'm trying to destroy this person. I'm not really trying to build them up. I'm not really trying to do anything to help them. What I'm trying to do is make me look good, because that's really the whole end piece too. Because see, the serpent, which was example of the devil, he was trying to make himself better than God because he knew more than God, and he knew that they didn't know what God knew, and God hadn't told them what he knew. And so let me tell you what you don't know that God knows and he don't want you to know is really what it was all about. Okay. And it wasn't even about that because God had told him. He told them, they just again, no self-control. And a lot of people, there's an example in the stuff that I got from the information I looked up that said that when you lose your self-control and you let anything control you, guess what? You'll do anything. You'll do anything. That's what's going on in our world right now. So everybody just needs to, we're having a real family talk. We just need to check ourselves.
Is it really losing self-control, or is it losing self-confidence? Because some people prey on those who has low self-esteem, and they know it. They know that they're vulnerable. They're in a vulnerable state, and they'll prey on that person.
Hey, that's a good point, because that is what they're talking about when they're talking about boundaries. So you have decided you're going to go inside this person's boundaries because you know their walls are down.
Mm-hmm.
You know that there's a hole in their wall. You know that you can figure out how to get in, what to say, what to do, so that you can finish destroying and even possibly killing them. You never know what you may do to hurt someone and how little it may take to just push them over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's what's going on, because when we talk about, as we talk about boundaries right now, and you brought up this shooting that happened yesterday, the American people think that we are infringing upon their right to bear arms by saying that we want to remove that law. I think that there is some amending to that law that needs to happen, because the American people should not be walking around having guns. Guns should not be in your homes where kids are able to play with your guns and kill each other, or take a gun to school as a kindergartner and, pull it out and show his friends, or, the examples that are happening, right? All the way up to being able to carry a rifle and then get off of a trial because, oh, I showed up as a teen with a rifle and I accidentally killed people and I was afraid for my life. You were the one with the rifle.
Right.
You were the threat in the situation. And the thing is that, again, when we talk about boundaries and we talk about rights, people think that we are infringing upon their rights with boundaries that are already set or not set, or people make up in their mind nowadays. This is the thing. Reality is not reality. Reality is what is in my mind. And so this is where people are saying, oh, well, I have to tell my truth. This is my truth. Well, yeah, you can tell your truth of your experience. Your experience is not everyone's experience. So your truth and your which is your experience is valid, but you cannot make that everybody thing because it's happened to you. And I'm not saying don't share your experience, because do share your experience. There are some people who may be going through a similar situation. But I think that when we really talk about boundaries, we have to talk about the reality of the 21st century and what reality means in accordance to boundaries.
So what is the reality? This is a new one for me. What is the reality of the 21st century? Define that for us, please, Corinne. And if you have something to add to that case, Sandy, define that for us, because I'm going to share something here in just a minute. We're going to go right to that accountability, responsibility piece, because that is what you're talking about. Everybody has to be accountable for whether it's your experience or whether it's your warped reality. Because see, that's what I call the 21st century reality. I call it a warped reality. It
Right.
is not real. Okay. Reality is when I wake up in the morning and I know that I can put my clothes on, I can eat some food, I can get in my car, I can go to work, and I can not worry about someone coming into my office, into my space, and shooting me up. Because the shooting up piece, that becomes a warped reality. And although we want to make it a real reality, it is not, and it should not be. So what is the 21st century reality that you see, Corinne? Help me.
Mom, I mean, you just said it. What are you talking about?
Oh, okay. All right. So we on the same page.
I'm just saying is that people, and I'm not saying that people shooting up places is a warped reality. It's happening. What I'm saying is, is a warped reality is people going in to work and making everyone their enemy when people are kind to them. I'm saying as a warped reality is that, and you're doing that because you're hurting on the inside. So
yes,
whatever is on the inside of you, you're reflecting that on the outside of you, and you're making that, oh, that's the truth. That's my truth. So it's real for everyone. No, it's not real for everyone. It's real for you. And the thing is that people are hurting.
Yes.
People are hurting on the inside and they need help.
Yes.
Because
and most of the time,
what's happening on the inside of their heart and their mind, they're bringing it out of them, which is why you have people going into places like their job, shooting people up because they're mad, going into schools, shooting other kids up because they were bullied, going into, different daycares. Oh, because I'm going to see my baby mom and that's the only place I'm going to see her, so I'm going to shoot her dead. These are real examples of things we know are happening. So this is reality, but let's get to the core of the issue. The core of the issue is that people are hurting. They have no self-control. They have no boundaries. So it's coming out of them. It's spewing out of them.
Okay, so let's get to those are the unhealthy boundaries that people are facing. And the reason, again, is accountability and responsibility. The reason everybody, whoever's listening, everybody here on the show tonight, is because of accountability and responsibility. So I'm gonna let you share one of your experiences, Kate, Sandy, and then I'm gonna share something that this week and last week that I just kind of experienced, and it fits right into boundaries. Go ahead.
What experience am I sharing? Like my experience.
Any boundary experience you've had, anyone that you've had that you'd like to share, anything.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 2021 is when I start going into 2022 is when I started setting boundaries with everybody. Prior to then, I had people setting unspoken boundaries to me, saying that, oh, I set up boundaries, but they wasn't spoken. So for me, boundaries are only boundaries when both parties know about boundaries. Other than that, it's just a manipulation tactic. So boundaries have to be spoken to both. You have to speak your boundaries to people for them to be healthy boundaries. So going into 2022, I'll talk about my boundary experience with my mother, because that's one relationship that was toxic that I've always talked about on social media platforms. So going into 2022, I told my mother I no longer want our relationship to be the way that it was. She would call me, ask me to do things, and if I couldn't do it, she would yell at me. I said, I'm tired of this back and forth game. You always yelling at me when I can't do something, and you yelling at me has nothing to even do with me saying no, because a no is a complete sentence. I shouldn't have to tell you I don't feel good. I shouldn't have to tell you that I'm working late, so I'm not about to drive 30 minutes when I get off from work to come and take you somewhere when I just left there the day before. So it was like our relationship was coming very toxic, and she was screaming and yelling at me when I couldn't do stuff. And it was like I live like 30, 45 minutes from my mother. I don't stay inside Indianapolis. And so I was driving over to where she lived like a couple of days a week just to do things for her. And I'm like, listen, I'm busy. Can you get everything you need done in one day? Or can you schedule a day where I can do stuff with you and get everything you need done? I was like, is that reasonable? And she will agree, but then it will fall back where she's calling me every day, wanting me to come in town to take her place. It's like, I don't come inside Indianapolis that much. I work from home. My schedule is hectic. I can't do that. That's not feasible. I said, that's gas money. I was like, I don't, and everybody talks about it, talking about you only use your mother. You this and that. I'm like, I don't use my mother. I said, but my car doesn't also run on please and thank yous. So yes, I do have to ask for gas money every once in a while when I'm coming to take her places 3 and 4 days a week when I live 30, 45 minutes away from her. So we will get in this back and forth yelling match. I was like, hey, this is disrupting my peace. And when my peace is disrupted, my health is affected. So I told her going into 2022, I'm not doing this anymore. If I hang up on you when you start yelling at me, know that that is a new boundary that I'm putting in place, because I can't take it. You are mad at something else, at some other reason. You get mad because she lives with my grandfather. So he might have made her mad. So now she's calling me to find a reason to yell at me. And this has been going on since I was a child. So I knew the pattern. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. This has been going on my whole life. I'm not doing this anymore. So when she started doing it, one day I was like, hey, that's a boundary that I've already spoken about. I can't do this. I have to go. And I hung up. And the more consistent I got with that, even when I found when she was making me upset and I was ready to argue, I was like, okay, I gotta go. You're upsetting me. I said I wasn't gonna go back and forth with you. I have to go. So it was one day I needed some questions about my childhood. She didn't want to answer them. She was getting upset. I was like, okay, I see that this is upsetting you. Have a nice day. I'll talk to you later. The more consistent I got with that boundary, the better our relationship got. Here lately, our relationship has gotten better because she's seeing that I'm in a better space. Because I told her, this isn't about you. This is more so about me. This isn't an attack on you. This is about me healing to become whole. And I don't want to live in a space where I'm constantly on anxiety because you're yelling at me about stuff that I didn't even do. And I just showed her my schedule one day. It's like, look at my schedule. I said, I'm constantly doing things. And I said, I want to do stuff with you. I want to be able to take you places, but I just can't do it every day of the week when I have other things that I'm doing. So I think me communicating for her to understand that. And then when she does need me and I'm there for her, like she had a financial thing going on one day and I was listening to her. I said, I can do this for you, but you have to come back to my house because I have to clock back in for work. And her seeing that I truly want to be there for her, it helps her to see that I am trying. And I had to take the boundary a step further and only communicate with her on certain days. And so when I can't, even when I communicate with her outside of that certain day of the week, I still make sure that I'm consistent with calling her on that one day a week that I said I will call her. So being consistent with my boundary with her and everybody else in my life, it helps. Just because they know that I'm trying to get I'm getting back into a healthy space, because when my peace is disrupted, it truly affects my health. And I tell people, when my health is affected, everything in my life is affected, and I can't have that. So, and it's starting to help her. We went somewhere together the other day, and she needed to go to the store, and she asked me to take her to the store. I took her, and I was wore out by the end of it. And she was like, "I truly appreciate you," and she's helped me out here financially because I had to move, and she was like, when you're back on your feet financially, so I know you just went through some things, but just take me out for dinner. I appreciate spending time with you. So the boundary, it helped our relationship, because if not, I don't think that we would be able to be in the space and the place that we are now, where she can come to my house and sit and just watch TV now. Before I wouldn't allow her in that personal space of mine, just because of where we were at. So boundaries are good for both, as Corinne said, both parties.
Man, thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to share something that I read, and then I'm going to share a couple of things. So it says, sometimes love requires us to say no. Sometimes when we love somebody, we are required to say no to that person we love. And here's an example they gave. They said, you have a family member who is at um, a family party. You're at a party, and this person is abusing alcohol, so they're getting drunk. Okay, so you go over to them with the loving, kind concern that you have, and say that you think this is enough. You need to stop this drinking because this is enough for now, and maybe somebody needs to drive you home. So this person, you know what happens, right? They get upset. Not only do they get upset, but they respond angrily, and they say they're never coming back. And they just say, I'm not being a part of this. I'm not being a part of this. If you can't take on my drinking, then you don't want me around. I ain't good enough to be a part. You know how it done happen. I'm sure some of us it done happen to me with one of my children. Okay. And so what the problem is that this person doesn't understand boundaries. And that's where your mother was. And until you helped her to understand it, as Corinne said, maybe they don't understand, and most people don't. And you know why they don't? Because understanding boundaries starts in childhood, you guys. It starts with you raising your children. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So here we are. This week we had a baby shower. And we tried so hard to make sure that we covered everything. But there were still some boundaries that weren't covered because people would just not cooperate. I think Corinne thought it was one motive. I realized later that I personally thought it was a misunderstanding. I want to know what Corinne thinks now that she's heard back from what the lady said. What do you think? Was it a misunderstanding, or was it still motive for you?
I think that people make excuses. I think some people get by making excuses. I don't understand how there was a misunderstanding when you stated clearly what things were. I even went into explanation of when you send an invite out, when you make an electronic invite, most people know when they make these, you have to put exact emails in those electronic invites. If you forward an electronic invite, you cannot get an RSVP. You cannot get a number on who will attend.
You did explain all that. You are correct.
I did. I tried to communicate clearly why I needed the emails. I understand what she said, but she didn't say, oh, I'm just trying to make it easier to just forward emails. Because she could have said that. And I said, well, it really ain't easier because we need an RSVP. And again, you came back with, hey, I need people's addresses. So realistically, it was no help that was added in her doing what she did. So I don't know where the misunderstanding came from when we were clear, when I repeatedly repeated myself. I even gave her clarification in the email that I sent her. Hey, send me the emails. I even said it again. I gave her another chance to not do it her way. So to me, it's not a misunderstanding. I'm just going to tell you it's a misunderstanding because I don't want any issues between our families. That's what I think that is. Because I can keep going on with why I believe that it was not a misunderstanding.
No, you don't have to say anymore, because again, that is a part of boundaries that people don't. It's just a little small piece. It ain't even a big thing. It's really not, you guys. When I was reading this, and so we're going to talk about how we can help our children, and how we can help our children, and in helping our children, we can help ourselves. We're going to talk about that. That's going to be the last little piece that I really want to talk about. But again, you said something. Why is it that some people think that I can, because if we look at the former, that number of whatever he was, 45, he wants to always manipulate everything to make it look like I haven't done anything wrong. I can sleep around on my wife. I can be the president. I can lie to the country. I can do whatever. And all that's all right. And people go along with that, y'all.
And people learn to do that.
And he's teaching them how to do it as well. And that was my other piece, leadership. Because what I talked about, that was the other piece I was going to give. The other example is leadership. I had a person who running for office. They stacked the deck for themselves with people who don't even come to, and I know to our chapter meeting, they don't come to our chapter meeting, but they came to vote for this person. And that's supposed to be okay because I want to win. How manipulative is that?
Mm-hmm.
How breaking the boundaries is that? But people will say that's okay. That's what you're supposed to do so you can win. No, it ain't. No, it's not. Because guess what? You don't win. Neither do the people you've taught how to manipulate and play the game, do they win. And neither do you win in the end. Even if you win the election. And that's what people don't understand, because it'll all come back on you, because there's nothing new under the sun. God doesn't play favoritism. All that is in boundaries, you guys, all of that. It talked about, another good example is pastors in churches. It talked about that. It said when you had, and then it went on to talk about cliques. And what they said about cliques is that cliques are definitely against God. If you have a clique and your group keeps everybody else out, because that's what a clique is. A clique says, no, you can't be in this thing with us. And it didn't say that you can have special people that you associate with, because it went on to talk about Jesus, you guys. It said you can have special people that you relate to, because we all relate to different people. But if somebody else wants to come and talk to you and be a part of your group, you don't say, no, you can't be a part of our group because you don't fit in with this. I have a great example. When I was in high school, we had a dance group. What I was trying to do, which is what I guess I've always wanted to do, is just to keep it going for the next year. So it was a young lady who wanted to come and learn what we were doing, and she wanted to have a group next year after all of us were graduating, because we were all seniors. But one of the girls in the group didn't want to have her around. And me and her got into it. Wow. And I was the bad guy. With everybody else in the group, I remember that when I was reading this, and when I was reading about cliques, and I said, I have never, even though those 4 girls were my really good friends and we had things in common, but it wasn't so much that nobody else could come around and be a part of it, not for me. But it was for my other friend. And it was quite interesting. I just remember that when I was reading this, and I said, I have always wanted to include everybody, because we should. Everybody has something to contribute. And when we devalue people, that's what starts that thing that Koran talks about, is people coming in and feeling like, I'm gonna take my revenge out this way. I'm gonna do this way. That's what makes it happen.
Yeah.
That's what makes it happen. So how do we work this? How do we make this healthy? Uh, it talks about doing it with our children, doing it in front of our children the right way. What do you think about that, Corinne?
Um, I think that is a positive way to definitely start it. I think as a mom right now, I think it's hard. Like, I've been listening to this book. Um, it's called, hold on one second, The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women by Valerie Young. Why capable people suffer from the imposter syndrome and how to thrive in spite of it. So this imposter syndrome is like thoughts in your mind that make you feel like you are not capable to do something, but the other part of that is that you have these overbearing and just crazy goals and things that you've set for yourself. And I know I see this meme a lot where there are women who say, I don't know how you do it. Like I saw it the other day. I don't know how you guys do it. How you be a mom, a wife, a friend, you're trying to volunteer, you're trying to go work at church, you go to church, you're still trying to go out with the girls, you're still trying to exercise, you're still trying to clean your house. I don't know how y'all women do it, right? And it's like, okay, like, and I feel like I'm in the middle of that where I'm just trying to find this balance of everything. But I'm trying to balance it all by myself. Not, and so between my husband and I, we balance things really well, but just trying to figure out this working mom, working from home with my kid, and then still going to the other kids' events, still trying to work out, still trying to make sure my house is clean in some kind of capacity. So I think that what I'm saying here is that when I think about boundaries and setting them with my kids, I'm working with my kids right now. I'll give you some examples. JD leaves. The first thought in my mind was that he forgets his lunch every day. He leaves his lunch at home every day. I've asked him for the past months. Y'all was down here, right, Mom? When y'all was here did y'all come for Christmas or
No, Thanksgiving?
This was in November. I'm telling this boy to make his lunch. Make your lunch because that helps me out. This is me just setting one small little thing. It takes 3 minutes to make your lunch the night before. And I'm telling him, just do it when you get up from eating dinner. You get up from eating dinner, you put your plate in the dishwasher, you go start making your lunch. It'll take you nothing more than 5 minutes. Make your lunch. It helps me out. Well, Mom, why can't you do it? You're not doing anything. You're just holding Karina. Why would you just hold her? You can do this for me. You're my mom first. I'm your oldest. Manipulation. Kids manipulate their parents. And so, in some ways, I feel bad sometimes. Oh, why can't I take him his lunch? And then it turns into an argument between you and your spouse. Why do you let him do that to you all the time? You have no time. You're working during the day. You have the baby during the day. Tell him no. Then he'll learn when you can't bring him his lunch that he should have made it the day before. Well, we had that happen a couple days ago. JD's calling me. I'm hungry, Mom. I'm starving. Why can't you bring me my lunch? I told you I'm in a meeting. At your lunchtime, I am in a meeting. That's not my fault. You should have listened to me and made your lunch. Next day, did he make his lunch? No. So help me out, ladies, with this boundary.
So I think if you just think about it like an alcoholic and you told him no, he will figure it out. Just let him go a week with being hungry, and maybe what you do is just take him a snack, after school when you have the time to take it. But I wouldn't even worry about it, because again, there is a point where you say no and you have to mean it. And that will have, and not that you don't love him any less, because you actually love him more, because you're trying to teach him that he has a responsibility in this as well.
Does he get allowance?
Yes.
Do you have a chore chart?
Yeah.
So I would make that part of his chore. And if he doesn't make his lunch, deduct some of his allowance for that week. I had to do that with one of my foster sons. I had to make some of the things that he should have been doing an incentive for him to get his allowance, even for him to do his homework. And when he didn't get allowance for that week, and when he was mad. Even a free day, like a Sunday when it's a rest day, and he got just a free, he got money just for a rest day. He didn't even get that, just because he had a negative balance by the end of the week, and he learned.
Okay. Thank you. That's a good idea, because this yesterday I took him his lunch. The two front ladies at the school, the secretaries, we're just chopping it up with JD. JD's standing in the office, and it's like an everyday thing. They're laughing. JD, Mom, did you bring JD his ham sandwiches with pepperoni? You better go out there and go hug your mom. She brings you lunch every single day. We see your mom as much as we see you.
Yeah.
Then he comes out and hugs me, and I'm like,
No, I want you to make your own lunch. That's what I need you to do. And maybe even also, you just need to go down there and stand and make sure he makes his lunch and puts it in the refrigerator. And then when he goes out the door, you need to make sure he has it in his hand. Sometimes you just have to walk through those things as you're teaching, because we are teaching our children. It's not something that anybody knows how to do unless someone walks them through it. Not even myself, not even you. Nobody's learned just because it just came into our head to learn how to do it. We have to actually physically do things. And, that may be a boundary you don't want to take. Again, I don't know how you want to do that. But again, parents teach their children. Parents teach their children boundaries. They teach their children how to create boundaries and that kind of thing. And so what you'll do for JD and whoever else and whatever else you need to teach anyone there, any of your children there, is that I love you. I'm going to walk you through this, but this is not going to be my life.
Right.
You'll be a grown man, and you won't be calling me to bring you lunch, because it won't be happening. You won't have lunch. You won't have anything, because you didn't get it done when you could get it done yourself.
Okay.
The other thing that it says here is that what we do is we create a character and an identity for our children, and not necessarily our character identity is what we want to teach them, but we want them to grow up and become what God wants them to become, because it says train up a child in the way that he should go. And that means in everything we should be training our children. And remember, our children are watching us. So we can't be saying we got boundaries and we don't, and we want them to have them.
Okay.
Because it's hypocritical. And church folks are so hypocritical. And, I may have fallen short myself, and forgive me, but I'm working on me, because I'm checking my heart. I'm checking my mind, my spirit, and my motive. The big thing really about all this is motive. Am I trying to manipulate and run someone else's life when I can't even run my own? That's what self-control is. Put some self-control on yourself. And I'm going to show you here some of the distinguishing things between self-control as we get ready to close. So it says, and not being under self-control. So it says, let me read what it says about not being under self-control. I thought these were quite interesting. So it says, boundaries should teach our kids that life is not about pursuing what we want. Life is not about surrendering and not doing what we are told to do. Boundaries teach us to set unconditional love. I unconditionally love you, but you have an obligation. How do we do this? And it is very important that we do it early on with our children, because they will get into relationships beyond us at our house. And how are we going to have that? How's that going to work for them? So the goal that is suggested here is that boundaries make us sacrifice for people when appropriate, but never in a destructive manner. I thought that was a statement and a half. Boundaries make us sacrifice for people. I heard Kay Sandy talk about that, about her mother. When appropriate, because you had to get that set up right, just like you, Corinne, with JD. When appropriate, I'll help you, JD. But this ain't an everyday thing. But never in a destructive manner. So if what I'm trying to do in these boundaries is trying to manipulate you and it's going to hurt you, I shouldn't be doing it. We should be available for people in crises, but we should not be available for people who want to use us.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, people will want to use you. I see it all the time in someone very dear and close to me. People will use him to the hilt, but that person doesn't care to be used. He's okay with it. They want you to be available for their demands. How do we distinguish between the two? So it says, being gracious is not a blank check for others to control or drain our emotions. And that's what Kay Sandy was talking about. You can't steal my peace.
Mm-mm.
You can't take my energy. You can't destroy my positive vibes that I'm having because you want to bring your negative ones. Goodbye, mother. See ya.
I think
Goodbye, Goodbye, JD. You didn't get your lunch? I'll bring you snack after school.
I think that is probably the biggest one where people understand that they need to set boundaries for their mental health.
Yes.
That is what people should talk about, because we're in a mental health crisis. That's why people are shooting up. That's why people are killing and hurting others. Because they're not setting boundaries.
And it took me a while to come to that place, because so many people, everybody has their own opinion about how you should interact with somebody else based off of their experience with their mother, their brother, their father, their this, and they don't understand how you feel emotionally and mentally about the situation. They're always thinking about themselves and not thinking about you as the person going through it and what you have been through. And so I had to stop listening to everybody else and listen to what I wanted and what was best for me. And unfortunately, I had mentors that's been through the same thing that I went through. And one day I cried out and I was like, I can't go through this anymore. And finally they said, you have to do what's best for you and not what everybody's telling you to do. And I don't think that's what a lot of people understand. They want to do what's best for them and not what's best for the person at hand.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of that book that I shared. That's really what it gets down to, is that you're capable of doing anything you set your mind to, but you have to set boundaries. And it can't just be men in the world who are setting boundaries, because, men aren't as emotional as women make things sometimes. And the book talks about that. And it just says, like, you have to set boundaries. You have to set boundaries at work. You have to set boundaries at home. You have to delegate. You have to make sure that you have a healthy balance so that you can live.
It says saying yes out of fear of rejection. This is really selfish motivation and is not really being kind or being concerned about others or being respectful of others' boundaries. When I say yes, because I'm afraid that you're gonna reject me. See? So I'm gonna say yes.
It's not respectful to yourself either. And I had to learn that because I was a people pleaser.
Oh, that's exactly what that said that was. It says being kind in order to gain someone's favor. Remember, I talked about that earlier. So I'm gonna be kind to you, I'm gonna come and I'm gonna vote for you. Just because I know that if I need something in the future, I can come back to you to get it. Or and but the world is telling you all these things are okay, but they're not.
Mm-mm.
Those are the things that destroy you mentally, they destroy you physically. They send you into a panic to want to do something when someone says no. The fear of someone's disappointment in you. And so what we have to remember, we have to be healthy in understanding that we have to understand what is unhealthy disappointment, because people should be disappointed in unhealthy disappointment, you guys. If you are out shooting drugs with people in the street, I need to be unhappy about that. I don't need to be supporting you in that, y'all.
Mhm.
Nor should you be asking me to support you in that. But people want that kind of support. I don't understand it. That part I just don't understand. It says a good friend tells us what we need to hear, not necessarily what we want to hear. A lot of people will get rid of friends who tell them what they, need to hear. That they'll be done with you. They weren't your good friend. That wasn't a good friend. Mm-mm. Because a good friend is going to say, you know what? I know you got my back. I know what you're saying is right. You
Yep.
guys should come to Corinne's play. You're going to see that. You should be able to hear that in the play. She has a good friend who is the bad person in the play, but that's a good friend because that good friend is telling her what she needs to hear. Come to the play. You guys should come to the play. Putting the plug in for that. So, what do we want to close with, you guys?
Hey, come to my play.
April 22nd. All you have to do is go online.
Event
I Married the Devil is Divorce of Sin. Go to Evite. I Married the Devil is Divorce of Sin. And actually, a lot of these things, boundaries, Corinne had to set them. That's part of what the play's about. It's a wonderful play, and it's a wonderful experience to share with people who may not know how to set boundaries, because we don't. We know we don't, because we have a lot of people with mental illness. And I don't think it's necessary that people have mental illness, Corinne. I think that people let their evil that can be within all of us control them, and not the good.
Mm-hmm.
And so when evil controls you, you do things that are sinful and outside of what is normal for normal people. And so we call it mental illness. We can call it whatever we want to. It ain't nothing new under the sun. It's just now we got these long rifles that we can take and buy one and go shoot people up with. People was killing people back in the past. They just couldn't do it in the mass like they can now. We need to stop it. That's what we started with. Let's go back to Adam and Eve. A big choice. We have a big choice to make. Do we live for the good, not manipulate each other, love each other? And if we can't love each other, we do nothing to destroy each other. Those simple things. What you want to share, Corinne? And then I'll let you share, Kay Sandy, and we're going to get off of here. We're just about into 1 hour.
We're a little bit over.
Okay, go ahead.
I guess we're 2 minutes away from it. Thanks for tuning in tonight. If you want to talk more about boundaries, or if you want to share some experiences, please listen to the show and chat, and we'll respond to your chat. Send us a message if you have some ideas for future shows. That's really it for me tonight.
Thanks for coming, Kay Sandy. How do you want to close out?
Thank you guys for talking about this topic, because this is near and dear to my heart. I've been trying to create healthy boundaries for my life for the last couple of years now. And I just want to tell anybody out there that's struggling with creating healthy boundaries, you know, boundaries are for you and the people around you. I've been told here recently that I don't accept the person. And what I had to tell them is, no, I accept you and everything about you. I just no longer accept the behaviors that come with you. And that it helped them see it in a different light, and it helped them take accountability for a lot. And I had to break it down even further as far as my sobriety and things that they were doing in their life that I could no longer support them, that would set me back. So please, if you're in toxic relationships, learn how to set up those healthy boundaries to save you and that person's relationship, especially if you love them. Thank you for having me.
I guess you just gave me a thought. Boundaries cannot be understood if you're unequally yoked.
Yes.
Thank you so much, both of you. Hey, Miss Karina Pope. Karina Pope, stop it. Stop it. We almost done. You did good, girl.
She ready for bed.
She is. And we thank all of you for joining. We will see you next month. Same time, same back channel. But join us on April the 22nd here in Indianapolis for I believe I've Married the Devil is the Voice of Sin, one woman act show written and produced and star in Miss Karan Lynette Harris Bradshaw. We want to see you there. We have 2 showings, 2 and 7 p.m. You're welcome to join us at either one. Tickets are on sale now. All right. Bye, ladies. Have a good evening and the rest of your week.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye.